Marcus woke up the next morning still angry about being fired. In his mind, Angela had overreacted to a simple customer service issue. He had been protecting Romano's reputation, and nobody seemed to appreciate that. He made coffee in his small apartment and checked his phone for messages. Nothing from Romano's, no apology from Angela, no request to come back to work. Marcus felt bitter about the whole situation. Around noon, Marcus decided to go to Romano's to collect his final paycheck. He also wanted to talk to some of his co-workers. Surely they would understand that he had been treated unfairly. Maybe they would even support him if he decided to file a complaint. When Marcus arrived at Romano's, he found the staff gathered in the dining room for an unusual meeting. Angela was standing in front of everyone, looking more serious than he had ever seen her. "Marcus," Angela said when she saw him enter. "I'm glad you're here. Please sit down. What I'm about to tell everyone involves you." Marcus sat in the back, feeling uncomfortable. The other employees looked confused about why he was there after being fired. "Yesterday evening, something happened that will change the future of Romano's," Angela began. "I need to tell all of you about it because it affects every one of your jobs." Angela took a deep breath. The customer that Marcus mistreated last night was David Chen. He owns Chen Restaurant Group, which operates 12 successful restaurants. He was here evaluating Romano's for a potential investment opportunity. Marcus felt his blood turn cold. David Chen, the restaurant owner, the man he had insulted and humiliated, was one of the most successful people in the industry. Because of Marcus's discriminatory behavior, we nearly lost a partnership that could have transformed Romano's into one of the premier restaurants in the region, Angela continued. The other staff members turned to look at Marcus with shock and anger. Sarah shook her head in disgust. James stared at him like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. However, Angela continued, Mr. Chen was impressed with how we handled the crisis. As a result, he has decided to move forward with the partnership, but with conditions. Angela explained the new ownership structure, the training programs, and the changes that would be implemented. The staff listened with growing excitement as they realized that their jobs were not only safe, but that the restaurant would become more successful than ever. The partnership will mean better wages, better benefits and opportunities for advancement, Angela concluded, but it also means we will have zero tolerance for discrimination or disrespectful treatment of customers. After the meeting ended, Marcus approached Angela privately. "I had no idea who that guy was," he said defensively. "That's exactly the problem, Marcus," Angela replied. "It shouldn't matter who he was. Every customer deserves to be treated with respect, whether they're a restaurant owner or someone just trying to enjoy a nice meal." "Look, maybe I went a little too far," Marcus admitted reluctantly. "But my intentions were good. I was trying to maintain standards." Angela looked at Marcus with something between pity and disappointment. "Marcus, your standards were based on prejudice and discrimination. You judged a customer by his appearance and decided he didn't deserve basic human dignity. So what happens now?" Marcus asked. "Now you face the consequences of your choices," Angela said. "Word travels fast in the restaurant industry. David Chen is well connected and highly respected. What you did last night will be known throughout the business community by the end of the week." Marcus felt panic rising in his chest. "You're saying I won't be able to get another restaurant job?" "I'm saying that your reputation will follow you," Angela replied honestly. Restaurant owners talk to each other. They share information about employees who create problems. Over the next few days, Marcus began to understand the full scope of what he had done. He applied for positions at 5 other restaurants in the city. At 3 of them, the managers had already heard about the incident at Romano's. At the other 2, they called Romano's for a reference and were told about Marcus's discriminatory behavior. Marcus was forced to look for work outside the restaurant industry. He eventually found a job at a retail store, making much less money than he had earned at Romano's. Every day, he regretted the choices he had made that Tuesday evening. Meanwhile, Romano's began to transform under Angela's leadership. The new training programs emphasized respect for all customers. The hiring process included specific questions about treating people fairly regardless of their appearance or background. David Chen visited the restaurant several times over the following months. Always as a regular customer, he watched as the staff implemented the new policies and procedures. The changes were remarkable. 6 months later, Romano's was featured in the city's main newspaper as an example of excellent customer service and inclusive hospitality. The article mentioned how the restaurant had overcome a discrimination incident to become a model for the industry. Angela kept a copy of the article in her office. Sometimes she thought about Marcus and wondered if he ever realized how much damage his prejudice had caused. Not just to David Chen, not just to Romano's reputation, but to his own future and the futures of all his co-workers. The restaurant industry was small and interconnected. Marcus's behavior had affected dozens of people in ways he had never considered. The couple at table 12 who left Romano's that night feeling uncomfortable about what they had witnessed. The other staff members who could have lost their jobs if the partnership had fallen through. The future employees who would benefit from the improved working conditions. But perhaps most importantly, Marcus had damaged his own character. His prejudice and arrogance had revealed the worst parts of his personality. Until he acknowledged those flaws and worked to change them, he would continue to face the consequences of his choices. David Chen occasionally told the story of his experience at Romano's to other restaurant owners. He used it as an example of how quickly things could go wrong when discrimination was allowed to flourish. But he always ended the story by praising Angela's leadership and the positive changes that followed. Sometimes, David would say, the worst situations create the best opportunities for growth. The question is whether people have the courage and character to learn from their mistakes. Marcus had been given that opportunity on the night he mistreated David Chen. He could have apologized, learned from the experience, and changed his behavior. Instead, he had doubled down on his prejudice and paid a price that would affect him for years to come. The lesson of that evening at Romano's was clear. How we treat others, especially those we think are powerless or unimportant, reveals our true character. And in a connected world where reputation matters, our character follows us wherever we go. Marcus learned this lesson too late. But for everyone else at Romano's, and for the customers who benefited from the restaurant's new culture of respect and inclusion, his failure became their opportunity to build something better. Angela arrived at Mr. Romano's office at 8:45 a.m., 15 minutes early. She had barely slept all night, thinking about the meeting and what it could mean for the restaurant's future. She had also spent hours thinking about Marcus and how his behavior had put everyone's jobs at risk. Mr. Romano's office was located above his original restaurant, the one he had opened 30 years ago before Romano's Fine Dining. The walls were covered with photos from his decades in the restaurant business. Pictures of satisfied customers, awards from food critics, newspaper articles about his success. Angela had only been to this office a few times in her 3 years as manager. Usually, Mr. Romano visited the restaurant to check on operations. Being called here felt serious and formal. At exactly 9 a.m., David Chen arrived. Angela was shocked by how different he looked. Yesterday evening, he had seemed like a quiet older man in simple clothes. Today, he wore a well-tailored business suit and carried himself with obvious confidence and authority. This was clearly a man who was used to being in charge. "Good morning, Angela," David said as he shook her hand. "Thank you for meeting with us today." "Good morning, Mr. Chen," Angela replied. "I want to apologize again for what happened last night. Marcus's behavior was completely unacceptable." "I appreciate that," David said. "But let's sit down and talk about the bigger picture." Mr. Romano gestured for them to sit at a small conference table in the corner of his office. David opened a leather portfolio and pulled out several sheets of notes. "Angela, as Mr. Romano probably told you, I've been evaluating restaurants throughout the city for the past month." David began. "I visit each place as a regular customer to see how they really operate when they don't know they're being watched." Angela nodded nervously. "I've eaten at 23 restaurants so far," David continued. "I've seen excellent service, mediocre service, and poor service. But I have never experienced anything like what happened at Romano's last night." Angela felt her heart sink. This was not starting well. "However," David continued, "I want you to understand something important. While Marcus's behavior was terrible, your response was exceptional." Angela looked up in surprise. "I've been in the restaurant business for 25 years, David explained. "I've seen how managers handle difficult situations. Some ignore problems, some make excuses, some blame the customer. You did none of those things." David flipped through his notes. "Within minutes of the incident, you were at my table apologizing. You took full responsibility. You removed the problem employee immediately. You comped my meal without being asked, and most importantly, you listened to my concerns and took them seriously. Thank you, Angela said quietly. But I still feel like I failed. Marcus's attitude had been a problem for a while, and I should have addressed it sooner. You're absolutely right, David agreed. And the fact that you can admit that shows me something very important about your character. Mr. Romano had been listening quietly, but now he spoke up. David, can you tell Angela what you told me on the phone last night? David looked directly at Angela. I told Mr. Romano that despite what happened with Marcus, I believe Romano's has the potential to be one of the best restaurants in the city. But only if the management is willing to make some serious changes. What kind of changes? Angela asked. First, a complete review of your hiring and training processes, David said. Marcus's behavior didn't develop overnight. It was the result of attitudes that were allowed to grow unchecked. Angela nodded. She had come to the same conclusion during her sleepless night. Second, clear policies about customer service and discrimination, with regular training to reinforce them, David continued. And third, a management structure that actively monitors these issues instead of waiting for problems to explode publicly. I agree with all of that, Angela said. I'm willing to implement whatever changes are necessary. David studied her face carefully. Angela, can I ask you a personal question? Of course. How did you feel when you saw Marcus treating me the way he did? Angela thought about the question seriously. I felt ashamed, angry, disappointed. But mostly I felt like we had failed as an organization. We had failed to create a culture where all customers are treated with respect. David nodded approvingly. That's exactly the right answer. Too many managers would have focused on protecting their employee or making excuses for the behavior. Mr. Romano cleared his throat. David, why don't you tell Angela about your recommendation? David looked at both of them. Despite what happened last night, I'm going to recommend Romano's as an investment opportunity. But with conditions. Angela felt a wave of relief wash over her. The first condition is that Angela must be given complete authority over hiring, firing, and training decisions, David said. The second condition is that the restaurant must implement a comprehensive customer service training program within 60 days. And the third condition? Mr. Romano asked. Angela must be promoted to general manager with an ownership stake in the restaurant, David said. Someone who handles a crisis the way she did last night deserves to have a real investment in the success of the business. Angela's mouth fell open. An ownership stake? She had never dreamed of such an opportunity. Mr. Romano, what do you think? David asked. I think it's an excellent idea. Mr. Romano replied with a smile. Angela, I've been watching you for 3 years. You understand the restaurant business, you care about the customers, and you have the courage to make tough decisions. Last night proved all of that. Angela felt tears forming in her eyes. I don't know what to say. This is incredible. Say you'll accept the responsibility, David said. Because this won't be easy. You'll need to rebuild the restaurant's culture from the ground up. You'll need to retrain existing staff and hire new people who share your values. I accept, Angela said without hesitation. I want to make Romano's the kind of place where everyone feels welcome and respected. David smiled for the first time since the meeting began. That's what I was hoping to hear. Mr. Romano pulled out a folder from his desk. I've been working on the legal documents for weeks. We can have everything finalized within a few days. As the meeting continued, Angela couldn't help but think about Marcus. He had no idea that his behavior had actually led to her biggest career opportunity. His prejudice and arrogance had revealed both the worst and best aspects of Romano's management. There's one more thing, David said as the meeting was ending. I want to use Romano's as a model for how restaurants should handle discrimination and customer service issues. With your permission, I'd like to document the changes you make and share them with other restaurant owners. That would be an honor, Angela replied. As they shook hands and prepared to leave, David had one final comment. Angela, what happened last night was terrible, but sometimes the worst situations create the best opportunities for positive change. Marcus thought he was protecting Romano's reputation. Instead, he gave us the chance to build something much better. Angela walked back to Romano's that morning with a completely different feeling than when she had left the night before. Marcus's prejudice had nearly destroyed everything, but it had also revealed the character and leadership that would build Romano's future. Now she just had to figure out how to tell the Staff that their former co-workers' discrimination had actually saved the restaurant and created new opportunities for everyone. After David left the restaurant, Angela felt drained and upset. She had comped his entire meal and personally apologized 3 more times before he walked out the door. But she knew that wasn't enough to fix what had happened tonight. Angela looked around the dining room. The other customers had gone back to their meals, but she could tell the atmosphere was still tense. Several people had asked for their checks early. 2 tables had left without ordering dessert. The damage from Marcus's behavior was spreading through the restaurant like ripples in a pond. Angela walked to her office where Marcus was waiting. She needed to deal with him immediately. But first she had to make sure the rest of the evening went smoothly. She called Sarah over. "Can you handle Marcus's section for the rest of the night?" Angela asked. "Of course," Sarah replied. "What happened out there was terrible." "I've never seen anything like it," Angela nodded grimly. "Take good care of his remaining customers. We need to show everyone that this kind of behavior is not normal for Romanos." Angela went to her office and closed the door. Marcus was sitting in a chair across from her desk, looking uncomfortable but still defiant. "Marcus, in 12 years of restaurant management, I have never seen such unprofessional behavior," Angela began. "Look, Angela, I know it got a little heated out there," Marcus said, "but that guy was completely wrong for this place. Someone had to—" "Stop talking," Angela interrupted. "Just stop. You publicly humiliated a customer in front of our entire dining room. You made discriminatory comments about his appearance and his right to be here. You created a hostile environment that made other customers uncomfortable." Marcus shifted in his chair. "I was protecting Romano's reputation. That guy was making the place look bad." Angela stared at Marcus in disbelief. "Marcus, you were the one making the place look bad. That customer was quiet, polite, and respectful. He ordered expensive food and wine. He tipped well. The only problem in that entire situation was your attitude." "But you saw how he was dressed," Marcus protested. "He looked like he belonged at a truck stop, not at Romano's." "Marcus, that is exactly the kind of thinking that got us into this mess," Angela said, her voice rising. "We serve food to anyone who can pay for it and behaves properly. We don't judge customers by their clothes or their appearance. That's not how restaurants work." Angela opened her desk drawer and pulled out an employee handbook. "Did you read this when you were hired?" "I guess so," Marcus said uncertainly. "Page 12, Angela said, flipping through the book. "Our non-discrimination policy. It clearly states that we serve all customers with equal respect and dignity, regardless of their race, age, gender, religion, or economic status." Marcus looked at the page but didn't really read it. "That's just legal stuff. In the real world, you have to maintain standards." Angela felt her patience completely disappear. "Marcus, you're fired. Clean out your locker and leave immediately." Marcus's mouth fell open. "What? You can't fire me for this." "I was just being honest." "I can absolutely fire you for this," Angela said firmly. "You violated our customer service policies, our non-discrimination policies, and basic human decency. You're done here." "This is ridiculous," Marcus said, standing up angrily. "One complaint from some random guy and you're going to destroy my career?" "Marcus, you destroyed your own career," Angela replied. "Now please leave before I have to call security." Marcus stormed out of the office, slamming the door behind him. Angela sat alone for several minutes trying to process everything that had happened. Then her phone rang. "Romano's, this is Angela," she answered. "Angela, this is Mr. Romano," came the familiar voice of the restaurant's owner. "I just got a very interesting phone call." Angela's heart sank. Had news of the incident already reached Mr. Romano? "Sir, if this is about what happened tonight, I can explain." "Actually, it's not about that," Mr. Romano interrupted. "Though I'm curious what you think I'm calling about." Angela felt confused. Well, we had an incident with one of our servers tonight. A customer service issue that I had to address." "I see," Mr. Romano said thoughtfully. "Angela, the reason I'm calling is that I just spoke with David Chen." Angela felt her blood turn cold. David had called Mr. Romano directly? How did he even have the owner's phone number? "Sir, I want you to know that I fired the employee immediately," Angela said quickly. "His behavior was completely unacceptable and I took full responsibility for it." "Angela, slow down," Mr. Romano said. "Let me ask you something. What do you know about David Chen?" "He's the customer who was mistreated tonight," Angela replied, confused by the question. "He seemed like a very nice gentleman. very patient and polite despite how badly he was treated. Did he mention what he does for work? Mr. Romano asked. No, sir. We didn't really discuss that. I was focused on apologizing for what happened and trying to make things right. There was a long pause on the phone. Angela could hear Mr. Romano breathing, like he was trying to decide how to say something difficult. Angela, David Chen owns Chen Restaurant Group. They operate 12 restaurants in 3 states. Very successful, very well respected in the industry. Angela felt like the air had been sucked out of her lungs. Oh my God. But that's not why I'm calling, Mr. Romano continued. Angela, I've been thinking about retiring. I'm 73 years old and I want to spend more time with my grandchildren. For the past month, I've been quietly looking for someone to take over Romano's. Angela's head was spinning. Where was this conversation going? David Chen has been helping me evaluate potential buyers, Mr. Romano continued. He's been visiting restaurants throughout the city, assessing their operations, their staff, their customer service, all without anyone knowing who he was. Angela felt sick to her stomach. He was evaluating us? He was evaluating you, Mr. Romano said. Angela, David was very impressed with how you handled the situation tonight. He said you showed real leadership, genuine concern for customer welfare, and the courage to take immediate action when something went wrong. Angela didn't know what to say. Her mind was racing, trying to understand all the implications of what Mr. Romano was telling her. However, Mr. Romano continued, he also told me about your server's behavior. He was very disturbed by what he witnessed. Not just the discrimination and rudeness, but what it suggested about the restaurant's culture and training. Mr. Romano, I want you to know that Marcus's behavior does not represent our values, Angela said desperately. He acted completely on his own. This is not how we train our staff or how we expect them to behave. I believe you, Angela. David believes you too. But here's the problem. David was planning to recommend Romano's as a potential investment opportunity. After tonight, he's not sure he can do that. Angela felt like the world was crashing down around her. Not only had Marcus's behavior humiliated a customer, but it had potentially destroyed the restaurant's future. Is there anything I can do? Angela asked quietly. David wants to meet with both of us tomorrow morning, Mr. Romano said. He wants to discuss what happened tonight and what it means for Romano's going forward. He's also interested in hearing your thoughts about how to prevent something like this from happening again. Angela looked at the clock on her office wall. It was almost 10 p.m. In less than 12 hours, she would be sitting across from one of the most successful restaurant owners in the region, trying to explain how one of her waiters had nearly destroyed everything Mr. Romano had spent 15 years building. What time should I be there? Angela asked. 9 a.m. at my office, Mr. Romano replied. Angela, I want you to know that I still have faith in you. David was very impressed with how you handled the crisis tonight, but we're going to have to work together to figure out how to move forward from this. After Mr. Romano hung up, Angela sat in her office staring at the phone. Marcus had no idea what he had done. His prejudice and arrogance hadn't just cost him his job. They had potentially destroyed the future of the entire restaurant and everyone who worked there. Angela Rodriguez had been in her office doing paperwork when she heard voices getting louder in the dining room. As the restaurant manager, she knew the sounds of her restaurant like a mother knows her child's cries. Something was wrong. She stood up from her desk and walked toward her office door. Through the small window, she could see into the main dining room. What she saw made her heart sink. Marcus was standing over a customer's table, his face red with anger, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. Angela had managed restaurants for 12 years. She had seen waiters have bad nights before, but she had never seen one of her staff members publicly humiliate a customer like this. Not at Romano's. Not on her watch. She quickly walked out of her office and across the dining room. Every step felt heavy with dread. She could see the shocked faces of customers throughout the restaurant. Some were staring at the scene with their mouths open. Others were whispering to each other, clearly upset by what they had witnessed. As Angela got closer, she heard Marcus's final words. Some people belong in places like this, and some people don't. It's not personal. It's just reality. Angela felt sick to her stomach. This was exactly the kind of incident that could destroy a restaurant's reputation. Word would spread quickly through social media. Reviews would be written. Romano's could be ruined by one waiter's terrible judgment. She reached table 15 just as Marcus was walking away. The customer sitting there was an older gentleman in simple clothes. He looked calm but clearly hurt by what had just happened. Angela could see the dignity in his posture despite the public embarrassment he had endured. "Sir," Angela said softly, "I am Angela Rodriguez, the manager of Romano's. I sincerely apologize for what just occurred. That behavior was completely unacceptable and does not represent the values of our restaurant." David looked up at her. His eyes showed tiredness and disappointment, but no anger. "Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. I appreciate you coming over." "I witnessed the end of that confrontation," Angela continued, "and I want you to know that we take this matter very seriously. What happened here tonight goes against everything we believe in at Romano's." Angela pulled out a chair and sat down across from David. This was not a conversation to have while standing over him. She wanted to treat him with the respect and dignity that Marcus had failed to show. "Could you please tell me your name, sir?" Angela asked gently. "David Chen," he replied quietly. "Mr. Chen, first let me say that your meal tonight is completely on the house. That's the very least we can do after the treatment you received. But I also want you to know that we will be taking immediate action regarding our employees' behavior." David nodded slowly. "I appreciate that, Ms. Rodriguez, but honestly, the money isn't what concerns me most." "What does concern you?" Angela asked. David looked around the restaurant. Many customers were still watching their conversation, though they were trying to be discreet about it. "I'm concerned about what this says about your restaurant's culture. How your staff views customers. How they decide who deserves respect and who doesn't." Angela felt her heart sink even further. David was absolutely right. This wasn't just about one bad waiter having one bad night. This was about the fundamental values of customer service and human dignity. "You're absolutely right," Angela said honestly. "And I want you to know that Marcus's attitude does not reflect the training we provide or the standards we expect from our staff." "Has this happened before?" David asked quietly. Angela paused. She wanted to be honest, but she also didn't want to make the situation worse. "Not to this extreme, no. But I have noticed that Marcus can be selective in how he treats different customers." "I should have addressed it sooner." David nodded thoughtfully. "What will happen to him?" "That's not really something I can discuss with you," Angela said carefully. "But I will tell you that his employment here is in serious jeopardy. We cannot and will not tolerate discrimination against our customers." Angela looked around the dining room. The other customers were slowly returning to their own conversations, but she could tell that the atmosphere of the entire restaurant had been damaged by Marcus's outburst. "Mr. Chen, is there anything else we can do to make this right?" Angela asked. "Any way we can earn back your trust?" David was quiet for a moment, thinking. "To be honest, Ms. Rodriguez, I'm not sure. What happened tonight was very hurtful. Not just to me personally, but to my faith in how people treat each other." Angela felt tears forming in her eyes. She had worked so hard to build Romano's reputation. She had trained her staff to provide excellent service to every customer, regardless of who they were or what they looked like. To see all of that undone by one employee's prejudice and cruelty was heartbreaking. "I understand," Angela said softly, "and I don't blame you for feeling that way. What Marcus did was wrong on every possible level." At that moment, Marcus appeared from the back of the restaurant. He walked over to where Angela and David were sitting, his expression still defiant. "Angela, this customer asked to speak to you," Marcus said, as if he had done nothing wrong. "I explained to him that Romano's has certain standards, but he didn't seem to understand." Angela looked at Marcus with disbelief. Even after everything that had happened, he still didn't realize how badly he had behaved. He still thought he was in the right. "Marcus," Angela said in a cold, controlled voice, "please go to my office and wait for me there. Do not speak to any customers. Do not speak to any other staff members. Just go to my office and wait." Marcus looked confused. "What? Why?" "I was just doing my job. I was protecting the restaurant's reputation." "Marcus," Angela repeated, her voice harder now. "Go to my office, now." Something in Angela's tone finally got through to Marcus. He looked at her face and saw an anger that he had never seen before. For the first time that evening, he began to realize that maybe he had made a mistake. "Fine," Marcus said defensively, "but I still think someone needed to say something. We can't just let anyone walk in here and—" "Marcus," Angela's voice cut through his words like a knife. "Office now, not another word." Marcus finally understood that he was in serious trouble. He turned and walked toward the back of the restaurant, his confident swagger replaced by worried steps. Angela turned back to David, who had watched the entire exchange with quiet interest. Mr. Chen, I'm so sorry you had to witness that as well, Angela said. As you can see, Marcus still doesn't understand the severity of what he did. I can see that, David replied thoughtfully. Ms. Rodriguez, can I ask you something? Of course. How long has Marcus worked here? 3 years, Angela answered. And in those 3 years, has anyone ever complained about his attitude toward customers? Angela hesitated. The truth was, there had been a few complaints over the years. Comments about Marcus being rude or dismissive to certain customers. But the complaints had been vague, and Marcus was generally good at his job when he wanted to be. There have been a few minor complaints, Angela admitted, but nothing like this. Nothing this blatant or public, David nodded. So this behavior has been building for a while. Tonight it just finally came out into the open. Angela realized that David was right again. Marcus's attitude tonight wasn't a sudden change. It was the result of years of allowed prejudice and unchecked discrimination. She had failed as a manager by not addressing it sooner. You're absolutely right, Angela said sadly. I should have dealt with this long ago. I'm responsible for allowing it to reach this point. David looked at Angela with something that might have been respect. The fact that you can admit that says a lot about your character, Ms. Rodriguez, and it gives me some hope for this restaurant's future. Marcus poured coffee into a cup with shaking hands. His anger had been building all evening, and now it felt like a volcano ready to explode. He couldn't understand why this one customer was bothering him so much. Maybe it was the way David acted so calm and polite. Maybe it was how he seemed comfortable in a place where he clearly didn't belong. Marcus walked back to table 15 with the coffee. He set it down hard enough to make the cup rattle against the saucer. Your coffee, he said through gritted teeth. Thank you, David replied quietly. He was still eating his chocolate cake slowly, taking small bites and seeming to enjoy every taste. Marcus stood there for a moment, watching David eat. The man was taking his time like he had nowhere else to be, like he was planning to sit at that table all night. Is there anything else you need? Marcus asked, but his tone made it clear he hoped the answer was no. David looked up from his cake. Actually, I was wondering about the history of this restaurant. It seems like a special place. Has it been here long? Marcus couldn't believe it. How this guy wanted to chat about the restaurant's history? Like they were old friends having a casual conversation? It's been here 15 years, Marcus said shortly. Mr. Romano opened it in 2010. That's wonderful, David said with genuine interest. It must take a lot of hard work to build a successful restaurant. Yeah, well, some people understand that and some people don't, Marcus said meaningfully. David paused with his fork halfway to his mouth. What do you mean by that? Marcus felt his control slipping away. All evening he had been trying to hint that David didn't belong here. But the man either didn't understand or was choosing to ignore the hints. I mean, this is a fine dining restaurant, Marcus said, his voice getting louder. We cater to a certain type of customer. People who understand quality. People who know how to behave in a place like this. Several customers at nearby tables turned to look at the commotion. The couple at table 12 stopped eating and stared. The businessman at table 11 frowned at the noise. David set down his fork and looked directly at Marcus. Are you suggesting that I don't know how to behave properly? I'm not suggesting anything, Marcus said, his voice rising even more. I'm telling you straight out. You've been nothing but trouble since you walked in here. Asking for this, asking for that. Taking up my time when I have real customers to serve. The restaurant was getting quieter as more people stopped their conversations to listen. Marcus didn't care anymore. He was tired of pretending to be polite to someone who was clearly in the wrong place. I've been polite and respectful all evening, David said calmly, but there was steel in his voice now. I ordered food, I paid for everything, and I've been courteous to you despite your obvious hostility. Hostility? Marcus laughed bitterly. I'm just being honest. Look around you, man. Look at how other people are dressed. Look at what they're ordering. You stick out like a sore thumb. David glanced around the restaurant. He saw well-dressed couples, business people in suits, families celebrating special occasions. Then he looked down at his own simple clothes. So you're saying I don't belong here because of how I'm dressed? David asked quietly. Finally, you get it, Marcus said loudly. This isn't McDonald's. This isn't some diner where anyone can walk in off the street. We have standards here. We have a reputation to maintain. The entire restaurant had gone silent now. Every customer and staff member was watching the scene unfold. Marcus was too angry to notice or care. "You've been uncomfortable all night because you know you don't fit in," Marcus continued. "You keep asking questions about everything because you don't understand how fine dining works. You ordered the most expensive items on the menu to try to prove something. But money can't buy class." David's face had gone pale. He set his napkin down on the table and looked at Marcus with quiet dignity. "Young man," David said softly, "I have eaten in restaurants all over the world. I know exactly how fine dining works. And I know that true class has nothing to do with the clothes someone wears and everything to do with how they treat other people." Marcus felt embarrassed that David was lecturing him in front of everyone. That made him even angrier. "Oh, spare me the life lessons, old man," Marcus said with a nasty laugh. "You come in here in your cheap clothes, acting like you own the place, and then you want to teach me about class? You wouldn't know class if it bit you in the face." Several customers gasped at Marcus's rudeness. Sarah, the other waiter, started walking quickly toward the table. She could see that Marcus had gone too far. "You know what?" Marcus said, his voice now loud enough for the entire restaurant to hear. "I think you should just pay your check and leave. You've made everyone uncomfortable enough for one night. This is Romano's fine dining, not some charity soup kitchen." David sat very still for a moment. The hurt and anger in his eyes was clear to everyone watching, but when he spoke, his voice was still calm and controlled. "I would like to speak to your manager, please." Marcus felt a cold stab of worry in his stomach, but he was too angry and too committed to his position to back down now. "Fine by me," Marcus said loudly. "Angela can explain to you the same thing I've been trying to tell you all night. Some people belong in places like this and some people don't. It's not personal. It's just reality." Marcus turned and walked toward the manager's office, his head held high. He felt justified in everything he had said. Someone needed to maintain standards at Romano's. Someone needed to make sure the wrong kind of people didn't ruin the atmosphere for the real customers. Behind him, David sat alone at table 15, surrounded by the stares of dozens of other diners. His chocolate cake sat half finished on his plate. His coffee was getting cold, but he remained sitting straight in his chair, maintaining his dignity despite the public humiliation he had just endured. The other customers began whispering among themselves. Some looked shocked at Marcus's behavior. Others seemed uncomfortable with the whole situation. A few nodded in agreement, thinking that maybe the waiter had a point about maintaining standards. Sarah reached David's table just as Marcus disappeared into the back of the restaurant. "Sir, I'm so sorry about that," she said quietly. "That behavior was completely unacceptable. The manager will be right out to speak with you." David looked up at her with tired eyes. "Thank you. I appreciate your kindness." As Sarah walked away, David picked up his coffee cup with slightly shaking hands. He took a sip of the now lukewarm coffee and waited for the manager to arrive. The whole restaurant continued to watch him, wondering what would happen next. Marcus had made his choice. Now everyone would have to live with the consequences. Marcus brought David's glass of red wine to the table. He set it down without care, causing a small splash to hit the white tablecloth. He didn't apologize or offer to clean it up. "Your salmon will be ready in 15 minutes, Marcus said flatly. "Thank you," David replied. He lifted the wine glass and took a small sip. "This is quite good." Marcus didn't respond. He turned and walked away without another word. He had better things to do than chat with someone who clearly didn't understand how fine dining worked. At table 12, the wealthy couple was enjoying their expensive meal. Marcus checked on them every few minutes. He refilled their water glasses before they were even half empty. He made sure they had everything they needed. "How is everything tasting tonight?" Marcus asked with genuine warmth in his voice. "Absolutely wonderful," the woman said. "The lobster is perfect." "I'm so glad to hear that," Marcus replied with a big smile. "Can I get you anything else? Perhaps another bottle of wine?" This was how customers should act, Marcus thought. These people knew quality. They appreciated good service. They would leave a tip that made his hard work worthwhile. Marcus noticed that other tables in his section were filling up too. A businessman in an expensive suit sat down at table 11. Two well-dressed women took table 13. Marcus felt good about his section tonight, except for one problem table. He glanced over at David, who was still sitting quietly at table 15. The man was looking around the restaurant again, watching how the staff worked. Watching how other customers were treated, it made Marcus uncomfortable. Why was this guy paying so much attention to everything? The kitchen bell rang. David's salmon was ready. Marcus picked up the plate and walked it over to table 15. He set it down in front of David without ceremony. "Here's your salmon," Marcus said. David looked at the plate. The fish was cooked perfectly. The asparagus and potatoes looked fresh and well prepared. "This looks excellent. Thank you." Marcus was already walking away when David called after him again. "Excuse me, could I get some black pepper?" Marcus stopped and turned around slowly. His face showed clear annoyance. "What? Black pepper, please." "For the salmon." Marcus sighed loudly enough for nearby customers to hear. He walked to the service station and grabbed a pepper mill. He brought it back to David's table and set it down hard. "Anything else?" Marcus asked in a tone that made it clear he hoped the answer was no. "Actually, yes. Could I get some lemon slices?" "I don't see any on the plate." Marcus felt his anger rising again. This guy was being so demanding. First wine, then pepper, now lemon. What would be next? "The salmon comes with lemon butter sauce," Marcus said impatiently. "It doesn't need more lemon." "I prefer fresh lemon with my fish," David said politely. "If it's not too much trouble." Too much trouble? Marcus thought. Everything about this customer was too much trouble. "Fine," Marcus said through gritted teeth. "I'll get you some lemon." He walked to the kitchen and asked for lemon slices. The chef looked confused. "Lemon for what?" "The salmon already has lemon butter sauce. Don't ask me," Marcus said. "The customer wants extra lemon. Some people don't know how to eat proper food." Marcus brought the lemon slices back to David's table. He dropped them down next to the plate without a word. "Thank you very much," David said sincerely. Marcus walked away, shaking his head. He went to check on his other customers. The businessman at table 11 ordered an expensive bottle of wine. The two women at table 13 ordered appetizers and asked Marcus for recommendations about the main courses. These were the interactions Marcus enjoyed. These customers respected his knowledge. They asked for his advice because they valued his expertise. They made him feel like a professional. 20 minutes later, Marcus saw that David had finished most of his salmon. Time to clear the plate and hopefully get this customer out of the restaurant. Marcus walked over to table 15. "Are you finished?" "Yes, that was very good," David said. "My compliments to the chef." Marcus picked up the plate. "Will that be all tonight?" "Actually, I was hoping to try that chocolate cake you mentioned." Marcus felt frustrated all over again. This guy was planning to stay even longer. How much time was he going to waste at that table? "The chocolate cake is $18, Marcus said, emphasizing the price. "That's fine," David replied calmly. Marcus wrote down the order with sharp, angry strokes. He was tired of this customer acting like money was no object. People who dressed like this didn't order $42 salmon and $18 dessert. It didn't make sense. While Marcus was taking the dessert order, he noticed that several other staff members were watching him. Sarah was looking over from across the dining room. James, another waiter, was standing near the kitchen door, clearly listening to the conversation. Marcus realized his voice had been getting louder each time he talked to David. Other customers were starting to notice too. The couple at table 12 kept glancing over. The businessman at table 11 was looking annoyed by the distraction. Marcus tried to lower his voice, but his anger was hard to control. "I'll get your dessert," he said coldly. He walked to the dessert station and ordered a slice of chocolate cake. While he waited, James came over to him. "Hey, Marcus, maybe you should ease up a little," James said quietly. "People are starting to notice." "Notice what?" Marcus asked defensively. "The way you're treating that customer. Angela might not like it if she sees." Angela was the restaurant manager. She was strict about customer service, but Marcus didn't think he was doing anything wrong. "I'm just being honest," Marcus said. "That guy doesn't belong here. He's making other customers uncomfortable." James looked over at David's table. The older man was sitting quietly, reading something on his phone. He wasn't bothering anyone. He wasn't being loud or rude. "He looks pretty normal to me," James said. "Trust me," Marcus replied. "I can spot trouble from a mile away. That guy is going to be a problem." Marcus picked up the chocolate cake and walked it over to table 15. He set it down in front of David with a hard clink of the plate against the table. "Your cake," Marcus announced. "Thank you," David said. "It looks delicious." As Marcus turned to leave, David spoke up one more time. "Could I possibly get a cup of coffee to go with this?" Marcus stopped dead in his tracks. He slowly turned around, his face showing clear frustration and anger. "Coffee," he repeated flatly. "Yes, please. Just regular coffee would be fine." Marcus stared at David for several seconds. The man's politeness was somehow making everything worse. Why couldn't he just eat quickly and leave like Marcus wanted him to? "I'll get your coffee," Marcus said with barely controlled anger. As he walked away, Marcus muttered under his breath, just loud enough for David to hear. "Some people just don't know when they're not wanted." David looked up from his cake, clearly having heard the comment. For the first time that evening, his calm expression showed a flash of something else. Hurt perhaps, or disappointment, but he said nothing. He just went back to eating his chocolate cake alone at his corner table, while Marcus fumed his way to the coffee station. Marcus watched the old man for 10 more minutes. The guy was still reading the menu like it was a book. Marcus felt his patience running out. He had other customers to serve, important customers who actually belonged at Romano's. The couple at table 12 wanted to order their main course. Marcus hurried over to them with his best smile. "Have you decided on your entrees this evening?" They ordered the lobster and the aged steak. Both expensive choices. Marcus felt better. At least some of his customers knew how to act properly in a fine restaurant. After placing their order with the kitchen, Marcus couldn't avoid table 15 any longer. He walked over with heavy steps. The old man looked up as Marcus approached. "Ready to order?" Marcus asked. His voice was flat and unfriendly. The man smiled politely. "Could you tell me about the daily specials? I saw the board, but I'd like to know more details." Marcus sighed loudly. "We have salmon with lemon butter sauce, $42, beef tenderloin with mushroom sauce, $58, and chicken breast with herbs, $36. He rattled off the prices quickly and clearly. He wanted the man to understand how expensive everything was. Maybe that would make him leave. But the man just nodded thoughtfully. "The salmon sounds interesting. Is it fresh?" "Of course it's fresh," Marcus said with irritation. "This is Romano's, not some cheap fish place." The man didn't seem bothered by Marcus's rude tone. "And what vegetables come with it?" Marcus rolled his eyes where the man couldn't see. "Asparagus and roasted potatoes." "That sounds very nice," the man said. "What about wine? Could you recommend something that would go well with the salmon?" Now Marcus was really annoyed. The guy was asking about wine when he clearly couldn't afford anything decent. Marcus looked at the man's simple clothes again. The old sweater, the worn jeans. This was ridiculous. "Our wines start at $60 a bottle," Marcus said slowly, like he was talking to a child. "Maybe you'd prefer just water." The man's face showed a slight surprise at Marcus's tone, but he still stayed polite. "I see. What about wine by the glass?" Marcus felt his anger growing. This was exactly what he had expected. The guy wanted the cheapest option possible. He was probably counting pennies in his head. "House wine is $12 a glass," Marcus said. He made it sound like even that was too expensive for someone like this. "That sounds fine," the man said calmly. "Could I have a glass of the house red wine, please?" Marcus wrote it down with sharp strokes on his notepad. "And for food?" "I think I'll have the salmon special." Marcus stared at him. The salmon was $42. That was almost the most expensive thing on the specials board. Either this guy had no idea what he was doing, or he was planning to eat and run without paying. "The salmon is $42, Marcus repeated clearly. "Yes, I heard you the first time," the man said quietly. "That will be fine." Marcus felt confused and more annoyed. This didn't make sense. People who dressed like this didn't order expensive food. They didn't drink wine. They ordered soup and water and left small tips. "I'll need to see a credit card," Marcus said suddenly. The man looked up in surprise. "Excuse me?" "A credit card. Before I place your order. Restaurant policy." It wasn't really restaurant policy, but Marcus didn't care. Other customers at nearby tables started to notice what was happening. They could hear Marcus's voice getting louder and more demanding. The man reached into his pocket and pulled out a simple black wallet. He took out a credit card and handed it to Marcus. It was a plain silver card, nothing fancy. not the kind of premium card that Marcus's usual customers carried. Marcus looked at the card. It just said David Chen on it. He had never heard that name before. It wasn't one of the important local business people he knew. "I'll be right back," Marcus said, taking the card. He walked to the computer terminal near the kitchen. He ran the card through the machine to check if it was valid. The machine showed that the card was good. It had plenty of credit available, more than enough to pay for dinner. Marcus felt disappointed. He had hoped the card would be declined. That would have given him a good reason to ask the man to leave. He walked back to table 15 with the card. "Here's your card back," he said, not hiding his disappointment. "Thank you," David Chen said politely. "So that's the salmon and a glass of red wine?" "Yeah, whatever," Marcus said. He turned to walk away. "Excuse me," David called after him. Marcus stopped and turned around with an annoyed expression. "What now?" "I was wondering about dessert. What would you recommend?" Marcus couldn't believe it. This guy was planning to order dessert too. Who did he think he was? "Desserts are listed on the back of the menu," Marcus said coldly. "They're all expensive." David looked at the dessert menu. "The chocolate cake looks good. Is it made here?" "Yes, it's made here. Everything is made here. This is a real restaurant." Marcus's voice was getting louder. People at other tables were starting to stare. "I think I'll save room for that then," David said with a small smile. Marcus had enough. This whole situation was annoying him beyond belief. The man was acting like he belonged here, like he had every right to be at Romano's, like his money was as good as anyone else's. "Look," Marcus said, leaning closer to the table. "Are you sure you're in the right place? There's a nice diner down the street, much more suitable, if you know what I mean." David looked at Marcus for a long moment. His face showed surprise and something else. Disappointment, maybe. "I think I'll stay here, thank you," David said quietly. Marcus straightened up. "Fine, whatever. I'll get your order started." As Marcus walked away, he was fuming. Who did this guy think he was, coming into Romano's like he owned the place, ordering expensive food, acting like he belonged with the other customers? Marcus put the order into the computer with angry finger presses. Salmon special, house red wine. For the guy at table 15 who was ruining his evening. Sarah, another waiter, walked up beside him. "Everything okay, Marcus? You seem upset." "Just dealing with a difficult customer," Marcus said. "Guy at table 15 doesn't belong here, making problems for everyone." Sarah looked over at David's table. She saw a quiet older man sitting alone reading something on his phone. "He looks harmless to me." "Trust me," Marcus said. "I know trouble when I see it. That guy is going to be nothing but problems all night." Sarah shrugged and walked away. She had her own customers to worry about. Marcus watched as the kitchen prepared David's salmon. He hoped it would be ready quickly. The faster this guy ate and left, the better. Marcus wanted him gone so he could focus on his real customers, the ones who mattered, the ones who knew how to act in a place like Romano's. Marcus Thompson checked his reflection in the bathroom mirror one more time. His black shirt was pressed perfectly. His tie sat straight. His hair was combed back just right. He looked like the kind of waiter who belonged at Romano's fine dining. The clock on the wall showed 5:30 p.m. Time to start another evening shift. Marcus walked out of the staff room and into the main dining area. The restaurant was already filling up with customers. Rich customers, Marcus thought to himself. That was the best part about working at Romano's. The dining room was beautiful. White tablecloths covered every table. Soft music played in the background. Expensive paintings hung on the walls. Crystal glasses sparkled under the warm lights. Everything about Romano's said class and money. Marcus had worked here for 3 years. He knew exactly what kind of people came to eat at Romano's. Business people in expensive suits. Wealthy families celebrating special occasions. Young couples on fancy dates. These were the people who left big tips. These were the people who mattered. Marcus straightened his shoulders and walked to his section. He had 6 tables tonight, all good spots near the windows. He liked to think the manager gave him the best tables because he was one of the better waiters. The truth was, Marcus had a way of making the right customers feel special. He could spot a big tipper from across the room. The first customers of the evening walked in. A man and woman in their 40s. The man wore a designer suit. The woman carried a purse that probably cost more than most people made in a month. Marcus watched as they were seated at table 12. His table, perfect, he thought. The evening was starting well. Marcus approached their table with his biggest smile. "Good evening. Welcome to Romano's. I'm Marcus, and I'll be taking care of you tonight." He poured water into their glasses with practiced skill. "Can I start you with something from our wine list? We have some excellent bottles that just came in." The couple ordered a bottle of wine that cost $200. Marcus felt good about that. Expensive wine meant a big check. A big check meant a big tip. As Marcus walked to get their wine, he looked around the restaurant. More customers were arriving. He could already tell which ones would be worth his time. The young man in the corner booth wore a Rolex watch. The family near the bar had ordered appetizers that cost $50 each. But then Marcus saw someone who made him frown. An older man had just walked in. He looked to be in his 60s. He was alone, and he was dressed all wrong for Romano's. The man wore a simple gray sweater. His jeans looked old but clean. His shoes were ordinary black sneakers. He didn't look like he belonged at Romano's at all. He looked like someone who should be eating at a diner or a fast food place. Marcus watched as the host walked the man to a table. Of course, Marcus thought. The guy was being seated in his section. At table 15, right in the corner, Marcus shook his head. He had been having such a good start to the evening. Now he would have to waste time on someone who probably couldn't even afford to be here, someone who would order the cheapest thing on the menu and leave a tiny tip. Marcus got the expensive wine for the couple at table 12. He opened it properly and let the man taste it. "Excellent choice," Marcus said with a real smile. These were his kind of customers. After taking care of the couple, Marcus had to deal with the problem at table 15. He walked over slowly. He didn't hurry. Let the old man wait a little. Maybe he would get uncomfortable and leave. But the man just sat quietly looking around the restaurant. He seemed to be taking everything in. The paintings on the walls, the other customers, the way the staff moved around the dining room. He didn't look uncomfortable at all. He looked calm and patient. Marcus reached the table and set down a glass of water. He didn't pour it like he had for the other customers. He just placed it down with a small splash. "Yeah, what can I get you?" Marcus said. He didn't smile. He didn't introduce himself. He wanted to make it clear that this customer wasn't important. The man looked up at Marcus with kind eyes. "Good evening. Could I please see a menu?" His voice was quiet and polite. He had good manners, Marcus noticed. But that didn't change anything. Good manners didn't pay the bills. Good manners didn't leave big tips. "Menu's right there," Marcus said, pointing to the menu that was already on the table. "Daily specials are on the board over there." He pointed toward the front of the restaurant without really looking. The man picked up the menu and started reading. Marcus stood there for a moment, tapping his foot. He had other customers to take care of. Important customers. Customers who mattered. "I'll give you a few minutes," Marcus said, but his tone made it clear he wasn't happy about it. As Marcus walked away, he looked back at the man, still reading the menu carefully. Still looking calm and patient. Still looking like he didn't belong. Marcus went to check on his other tables. The couple with the expensive wine ordered 2 of the most costly dishes on the menu. Perfect. The family near the window ordered 3 courses each. Even better. But every time Marcus looked toward table 15, the old man was still there. Still reading the menu like he had all the time in the world. It annoyed Marcus more and more. Other waiters in the restaurant were busy with their own customers. Sarah was serving a table of business people. James was taking care of a young couple on what looked like a first date. Everyone seemed to have normal customers. Customers who belonged. Marcus felt frustrated. Why did he always get stuck with the difficult ones? The ones who didn't fit in? The ones who made the restaurant look bad? He decided to give the man at table 15 a few more minutes. Maybe the guy would realize he was in the wrong place. Maybe he would look at the prices and decide to leave. That would solve everyone's problems. But as Marcus watched from across the room, the old man just kept reading. He looked comfortable. He looked like he planned to stay. Marcus sighed. It was going to be a long evening.